Hello, Exosage here on the Sage channel, and today I'm bringing you an assortment of combat drones and actually a few other random ones. As you might be aware, in Joint Survival, a little survival series I take part in, we got into drones a little bit before everything went to pot. Well, I decided to go ahead and try to make a few drones of my own and try to guess sort of things we might need in the future or things that could just be useful for drones. So I'm going to start off for the right, the left, and they'll get more complex as we go along. Starting off, we have a mobile relay. I actually have about 4 different types of these. I'm going to keep my UI off for the most part, that way it's not too cluttered up. The first little one here is the most simplistic one you can think of. It is just a singular antenna and a solar panel with a few pieces of metal to hold it all together, and a connector block here. That way you could hook it up to a whole drone carrier, carry it out wherever you want to leave it, disconnect it, and fly away. This thing has a lot of issues, of course, because if you were to bump it, it would carry on floating, spinning, and whatever you like. But the solar panel, as long as it has, I believe, 3 of the 4 little dots lit up, it will produce enough electricity to power that one single antenna all the way up to its maximum range of 5,000 meters. Moving on to the second one, this is a much more advanced one, but it requires uranium, which means it's not quite as easy to sustain forever because eventually it will run out of power. Now, the bonuses of this one are pretty big. One thing you will notice, though, is it doesn't have a gyroscope. But that's because you don't really need it, because you don't need it to face any specific direction. You just take this out to wherever you want to leave it, and you release it, and it'll just sit right there, broadcasting until its batteries run out. You don't even have to worry about bumping it as you fly off, because it doesn't matter which way it spins, it'll just keep on broadcasting because it's got a reactor, and the thrusters will hold it in position, so it won't go too far even if you do bump it, as long as you don't destroy it. Moving on, we have this one here, which is basically the same thing as that one, except for this one does not have a reactor at all. It just has 3 large solar panels, and 3 large solar panels is just barely enough to run the whole system, including a gyroscope, because this one would ideally need to stay still to keep the solar panels lined up, and its antenna. So this one would be able to keep on broadcasting that 5,000 while remaining still from not moving and not rotating. Of course, you want to line this one up pretty well before you leave it there, but it doesn't matter if you bump it a little bit as you're flying away, because the thrusters will stop it, and the gyroscope should keep it from spinning too far away from its original position. Moving on, we have this one here, which you'll notice has 2 solar panels and a reactor. Also, this one has a remote control block, because this one is slightly more advanced. In fact, it's the most advanced out of these relay drones. This one, the idea is you release it, you remote control it, you line it up using the camera on, there it is, this side right here to face the sun, and then once it's facing the sun and powered up all the way, you shut down its reactor, and the 2 solar panels at full charge will be enough to keep the antenna going into its max range, and also power the thrusters just in case it takes a little tiny bump, and I believe power the gyroscope as well. Mind you, if something does fly by and hit it, you're going to be in a spot of bother, but that's the same for basically either of these 2 right here, whereas this one, as long as something bumps it not too hard, as long as it's not destroyed basically, it'll keep on broadcasting even if something bumps into it. Moving on from our little relay drones, we actually have combat drones now. And once again, going right to left, in fact, we're going to change that. We're going to go left to right and then right to left, because we're going to start out with this little drone right here. This is the most simplistic combat drone. It's a little tiny missile drone, very simple. It doesn't even have a large storage area, but I found that you can actually store quite a bit inside the connector, so you'd be storing all your ammo in there, and then because that large connector has a large, well, conveyor port on the bottom, it connects straight into the missile launcher, so you don't have to worry about using up the ammo in the missile launcher and needing to return to base. This one is also designed to be pretty expendable, that way it's small and compact, and if it's destroyed, you're not losing too much stuff. Of course, you don't want to lose any drone, but I figured keep the weight down, and if it's lost, it won't be the biggest shame in the world. This drone has all of its thrusters compacted into this small area here, trying to keep it in line with the actual 2 pieces here, the 2 larger blocks, but unfortunately I had to stick some stuff down on the bottom, so I stuck my 2 reactors down here, as well as the 1 braking thruster down here. Overall, fairly compact design, and crammed into the inside of it. You can see we have our remote control block there. If we were to fly through it, I believe, where's the gyro block gone? Oh, there it is. It's stuck on the outside. I thought I had it hidden inside. Nope, it's right there. So, fairly compact design powered off of 2 reactors. Now, the reason why I have another one right here is because if we go ahead, we're going to switch over to our character, take control over this first missile drone right here. So, fly up to it. I could just use a pull down, but there's so many in here. it's easier just right now to go to the control me thing. There we go, press 1 for the camera. This is my custom camera overlay. Link to this mod in the description if you want to use it. And we fire our missiles. You'll see it fires 1, 2, 3, 4, and then goes to reloading. I'm still holding down the fire trigger. And as soon as it's reloaded, it'll start firing in. There we go. So it's pretty quick firing. You can imagine bombarding a larger ship with this with a lot of ease. Now the thing is, if you have a bit of an offset on when you fire those, you can have continuous weapons fire. So that's why I have this one here. It's basically the same exact design, except for instead of having the 2 reactors right next to each other, I put them on either side of the antenna sticking down, stuck a little block here on the bottom just for looks really, and then connected the reverse thruster to the bottom of 2 missile pods. So now if we were to control this one, we can go ahead and there we go, take full control over it. Once again, switch to the camera. So this one, you can see on our number 3 button, we have a toggle on and off for one of the missile launchers. The idea here is we press that, turn it off, we start firing. As soon as it's done firing, we wait a little bit of a second and turn it on, and now we have continuous fire, because what we've done is emptied the top one of those missile launchers, and the second that was empty, we turned on the other one, all the while holding the fire button. So now it's basically timed, so as soon as the top one is done firing, the bottom one has reloaded. As soon as it's done firing, the top one has reloaded. Only problem here is, of course, if we stop firing, it'll throw everything out of sync, and you'll have to turn these on and off again, but you can see it does guarantee a pretty much continuous fire. So this drone would be able to bombard any large structure with relative ease, and it's not really much slower than the one that had only 1 missile pod on top of it. As you can see, it still handles relatively well for such a small drone. Anyway, let's go ahead and switch back, and just so you might want to see comparison, I am going to remote control this one really quickly and do the same thing that we just did with that, doing a tiny little pass and bombing that asteroid. You see this one is a bit faster. I think it's 1,000 kilograms lighter or so. Yeah, it is a fair bit faster, so you might want to use this, but at the same time, the other one could make for a very good bombardment craft without having to worry about having some huge bulky ship. Anyway, moving on from that, once again, we're going to go right to left now without having to double back. This is basically a more advanced design, which I would suggest against using, really. Now, this design is basically the same as those that we just saw in the fact that it is a missile pod with storage, except for this thing's storage. If we go ahead and were to cut it open, let me get to the right part that we don't destroy anything we don't want to, you can see on the inside of it, we have a medium storage container linking from the connector all the way up to the missile pod. Now, this was actually the thing I built first, and I thought, okay, good, we can store 1 billion missiles in there, especially if you have times whatever inventory. The problem is that it becomes a pretty bulky ship, and if I was to remote control, and by the way, I'd like to point out, before I remote control it, I destroyed that little panel. You can see we have a reactor hidden in there. The ship itself, I'll go over this real quick, has another reactor over there. So once again, 2 reactors, and I believe if I take out some of the front stuff there, you can see we have a tiny little block there, which is our remote control block, and I think at the back, hidden behind this panel, oh no, that's a thruster. Somewhere around here I have the gyroscope hidden. Oh, there we go. It's just stuck at the top. So a lot of the stuff is hidden behind tiny little panels. The idea being it will at least give you some protection from anything coming at you. The reason I'm suggesting against using the ship is 2 reasons. One, it's slow, so I'll go ahead and take connection over it. There we go. And so start moving, and you can see it's a fair bit slower than the other 2. Its weight is about twice that of the heavier of the 2 smaller drones. And the second thing is, if we were to go ahead and do a Control V, can I do this from here? No, I have to switch over to spectator mode. I'm going to fly over in front of the drone we just put in and paste in one of these, switch back to actually controlling the drone, and take a shot or 2 at this other drone. And the reason I'm suggesting against using this mainly is because it did survive that hit, but a lot of times if somebody gets a decent hit in there, the whole system shuts down, meaning your conveyor is going to go to scrap. So this one's actually taken 2 missiles, but a lot of times it ends up taking a missile and it destroys the main container, meaning it's pretty much useless anyway, and anything connected on the inside is still scrapped. So it seems like if you're gonna just lose this ship in 1 or 2 hits anyway, you might as well just lose it in 1 hit, save the supplies and all building all that metal and extra complexity in the medium storage container, and just go with the smaller, more easily destroyed one, because you'll be able to more easily replace it. Anyway, moving on from that one, we have the same thing, same exact thing really. It just has 2 thrusters on each side, and the back has this funny little stick out here to have the 2 thrusters facing down. It changed the way it looks. I actually kind of like it more in a way, but at the same time, it still has the same failing as the other one. Let's go ahead and take control over it just so you can see how quickly it moves or doesn't move. And you can see weight is about the same, except for it moves a bit quicker. This one I could almost see you wanting to use, but at the same time, it can still have its problems of a single missile. If it takes out that main storage pod in the center, it's going to cause some serious issues. And you can still see power usage at the bottom right there. We're at overload right now. So it's instantly runs into power issues, so it's not even going at its full potential, but it's hard to get ammo, or hard to get reactors into this small compact shape. Another thing to consider is actually loading up those reactors. Because they're connected in through the piping and not accessible from the exterior, means that if you ran into a point where you just built the ship and it wasn't connected to a conveyor system to start, you would actually have to cut the ship open or stick on an external power supply just to get the conveyor system running to feed uranium in there. So it's a pretty serious issue. This ship here actually has the same issue. These are my final 2, a missile drone and a Gatling drone. They have the same issue there where you would have to basically power them up to get it going, but since they're a larger ship, it seems more acceptable. And yeah, you definitely wouldn't want to load them by hand. Ideally, maybe I'll put another reactor right at the back right here, where let me go ahead and actually place that in there. That way I can know exactly what I'm talking about. There we go. That way that could be your starting reactor, but there are a bunch of small reactors inside this ship because I didn't want to use bigger reactors, because I actually found an issue where if a single one of these thrusters was destroyed, because the ship is so compact, it could end up destroying that large reactor on the inside, powering down your whole ship. So I went with a bunch of small reactors on the inside of it. So let's go ahead and actually show those off. It's a little hard because I actually did a strange pattern to them, but let's go ahead and remove this. There you go. So you can see all the reactors showing up right there. And you see that I have basically reactor above reactor, then nothing on the sides, and then reactor to the left of reactor, and then up and down, nothing. And it just bounces back and forth. So if we look at the other side, just to make sure you understand what I'm talking about, there are reactors over here. Oh, dearie, dearie. There we go, on this side. So it's basically reactor left, right, then reactor up, down, reactor left, right. Anyway, it ends up with more than enough power to power the ship and get it going. So let's go ahead and copy one of these over there just so we have something to shoot at. And take control over this missile drone here. Its loadout on the inside is pretty hefty. It has 2 missile launcher pods, just like that second drone. I guess, yeah, second drone we showed. So you can once again do the fire your missiles. And once they're at that point, go ahead and turn on your other pod, and it'll just give you pretty much continuous fire. I misjudged that tiny bit, so now it should be perfect. There we go. And so now it can continuously fire on any enemy target. Now this drone is a lot more heavily armored than the other ones. As you can see, I'm hitting this other drone, the exact copy of the one we're in. And even though it took out the camera, I'm pretty sure its actual control systems on the inside function, so you could limp it back to safety. It's all built out of heavy armor. And of course now my missiles are unsynced, as I said. Actually, it looked like it almost synced it back up, but no dice there. So yeah. Pretty hefty ship. I'm pretty happy with it. And as you see, I've taken out a few thrusters here, but the power remains on because of the way I have those reactors set up on the inside. It's hard to take out all the reactors. And let's actually go ahead and show a little bit more of the ship's interior before I go ahead and show you its flaws. And the best way of doing that is once again copying the ship, pasting it there, and cutting it open so we can actually see its interior workings again. There's the missile launcher on the side. You can see they're a little sunk in. That's one of its flaws, of course, is the fact that they can blow themselves up if you take a turn too quickly. Let's go ahead, cut that free, cut this off. Yes, thank you very much. A little hard to get in there. If we remove this, you can see we do not have a large storage container. Once again, the missiles in this craft would be stored within this large thing here, this large connector, and the large connector down here. Now, I could theoretically switch this up so that we would be using a large cargo container, or a medium cargo container, but at the time I don't believe I am. Let me go ahead and check. No. So I could change this so it's using a medium cargo container, but I found that makes issues with the other one. The problem is the other one has Gatling turrets. I'll show you that in a minute, but a medium cargo container would work. Well, it wouldn't work at all, would it? Because you need it to connect to the access port and the missile turrets on the side, and you can't do that because the medium cargo container only has access to 2 sides of it from the large and then only 2 sides from the small. So that's why I ended up going with that, and you just have to store your missiles in these top and bottom connectors and hope to God nothing gets blasted out. Now behind the front here you can see we have our camera, a single defensive block before we reach our antenna, and our remote control block, all sturdy, well, all relatively safe behind a single layer of heavy armor. And then we have our 2 gyroscopes that allow the ship to turn, and once again we can look down there and see the conveyors that go between all of those little reactors and connect them all together. So that's the inner workings of that ship. Let me go ahead and show you the failures that I have already mentioned. So hop in here, Control U, take control, and start flying. And of course, if we were to go ahead and fire our missiles while turning too quickly, right there was an impact, so we can hop out and see that if you fire your missiles while turning quickly, you of course hit yourself. Now where'd the bloody ship go that I just did damage to? I think it was this one. It's at a funny angle. Nope, that's the one I cut up. Nope. Yep. And you can see it did some pretty serious damage here. Luckily, the ship is pretty sturdy, so it's actually not destroyed anything. The ship is still functional. In fact, I'd say it looks like this weapon system is actually still functional too. So let's fly out there and just keep firing. So even though you can end up in a spot of bother where you've damaged yourself, as long as you're flying the ship cautiously and as long as the multiplayer doesn't decide to be silly with you, you'll actually be pretty much all right. And you won't actually run into any serious issues. So flying about here, let's go ahead and get our missiles firing at a normal thing. There we go. So now they'll all continue. Oh, that one had to reload too. Son of a gun. 2, 3, 4. Turn on the next one. There we go. So now it'll continue firing. And you can see that as long as you're not doing any real quick turns, it actually works well as an armored bombardment craft. So it can fly up and do a lot of damage. Now, theoretically, you could remove one of the missile pods and replace it with a Gatling setup like I have on my Gatling ship, which I'll be showing in a second. But you can see this ship is relatively slow, but it's of course depending on its reactor redundancy and missile redundancy to still be useful, even if it does end up getting hit with a shot or two. And of course, attacking static or patrolling ships that do not deviate their course means you can easily just do an attack pass or sit from a distance without having to worry about being killed from a single incoming missile usually. So it's pretty useful, I think. I'm pretty happy with it overall. I could have taken off some of the side metal and let those missile pods be more exposed, but I really did like having the 2 little side metal pieces like this stick forward. Now this is my final one, the Gatling craft. Its inner workings are almost exactly the same as the one that we were just looking at, but if we were to go ahead and cut into it here, you can see that we have a 4-way little conveyor block stuck right in there, where it then goes back around the corner and into one of those small connection ports right there of that large up and down thing. So the ammo in this one would again be stored in the connectors. So let's go ahead, delete that, and I'll let you know how it works, and hop in it and just do some flying with it. This one, I'm not sure Gatlings have too much purpose when you're fighting larger ships or heavily armored things, but fighting other small ships, they can be pretty useful. Even though this one's heavily armored, you can still see we were blasting, attacking through the heavy armor relatively quickly. So you could imagine it being useful for attacking other small ships, and especially light armored ships. It can tear through them very, very quickly. So you could see this being very useful for that. Not so much, again, sure about attacking larger ships. But yeah, little things like that thing. I've already taken out its antenna. This one isn't going to last long either. Its antenna's down, which means it would no longer be functional. Of course, it's slower, but again, it's armor, so it can get the job done pretty well. And of course, I could tweak those small mini attack drones I just disabled, like the one I'm shooting at right now, to have this same sort of Gatling setup if I move things around enough. I think I could get it. It might be a bit finicky, actually, now thinking about it. Yeah, I don't think I could do it, actually, now that I'm thinking about it, because of the way you have to use the larger conveyor and then have it to the sides. Yeah, I don't think I could so easily set that up. Oh, and we apparently just lost drone connection. Why did that happen? Why did that happen? Did a piece... Gatling drone, it's right here. Okay, well, let's investigate. Why did we lose connection? Did a piece of metal hit us in the camera? No, it looks like it was just a bug. For some reason, it disconnected us. Well, I thought we were in range of those antennas, so it should be pinging our signal out to 5,000 without issue. Maybe it was just somehow not, so we got out of range of our actual character by 200 meters and cut the connection like that, possibly. Anyway, that's it for these drones. They're pretty useful, I think. Hopefully they're not too big to fit on a drone carrier. I will have a drone carrier of my own coming out relatively soon, so we'll see. Hopefully it'll still fit on there without issue. Alright guys, that's it. Thanks a bunch for watching. This map, this world, will be up on the Steam Workshop. I might do blueprints of these ships and stick them up there as well. Not quite sure yet. But if you want to try out these ships, just look for this world. It'll be up there, Combat Drones. Anyway guys, that's it. Thanks so much for watching, and I shall see you guys next time. Ta-ta!